Right, good afternoon. Thank you. I've always known I can be two different people. There's the me when I'm firing off all 8 cylinders. I'm naturally happy, open, bright, and full of purpose. Then there's the other me. I'm defensive, suspicious, tired, and the master of procrastination. I've had jobs where my soul has been evaporating from boredom on a regular basis. And I've had others where I've literally had the best time of my life. In 1982, I joined an extraordinary company where we were doing very repetitive work for very little money. But I was wide awake and deeply, deeply happy. Clearly, it wasn't the money or the nature of the job. Something else was at play. Back then, I'd not heard of the word engagement, but this place was swimming in it. We now know from many major studies that highly engaged teams significantly outperform their lesser engaged counterparts. In fact, the numbers are quite shocking. When they contrasted organizations that scored themselves in the upper quartile of engagement against the lower quartile, they found massive gaps in the key areas that make a business successful or not. For example, twice the profit, 2.5 times the growth. Employee turnover down 40%. These are massive numbers. But behind these numbers are millions of human stories. Your story. My story. According to surveys in the UK, US and Europe, they discovered that 20% of people either like or love what they're doing, 60% fall between okay or just about bearable, and a whopping 20% absolutely hate it. All those years of evolution leading to a lousy job. Surely it doesn't have to be like this. Surely there's a better way. So myself and my business partner decided to go on a journey to find out what does make people happy, what does make people feel engaged. So we started asking questions. And we got a lot of different answers. Some people said, when I'm doing something I'm interested in. Others said, when I'm at home, just hanging out with my kids. Other people said, when I'm learning something new. We had a lot of different answers. But then we struck on something that had been staring us in the face the whole time. We always feel engaged when something's new. And that got us thinking. For example, in 2004, I was invited to join a well-known organization to head up 12,500 staff across 5 different countries. This was a big step up for me. I was prouder than pride itself. In fact, my polish had more polish on them than they'd had in the whole of the previous year. I didn't have to go to work. I wanted to go to work. When I first met my wife, Sylvie, boy, was I engaged. I was making her cups of tea, not because she asked for it. I was making her cups of tea just because I thought she'd love it. When she spoke, I hung off every word. I listened deeply to every syllable. I was fully engaged and I was feeling the good stuff. All of us have felt that. And then things happen. I call these things events. Some events are positive. A nice surprise, a compliment, a thank you. Some events can be negative, a broken promise, a criticism, no thanks. Some events can actually be quite dramatic. Let's say at my first day of work, I am told I will now be working with one office, looking after 200 people, as opposed to the 12,500. Now, that's not just any old event. That's a major event. And when you've hit one of these, it's quite obvious you've walked into a decision point. I have to make a decision if I am to stay on that road. I can't just pretend nothing happened and carry on with the same level of enthusiasm. I have to make a choice. Should I stay or should I go? And if I'm to stay, I'd really need to talk about it to a point of completion or closure. Yeah? Now, thankfully, most events aren't nearly as bad as that. Let's say Sylvie and I are at the annual village tennis club dance, having a fantastic time. Until I just happen to notice she's dancing more enthusiastically with the tennis coach than she was with me. Now, I don't want to leave her because I'm crazy about her. But I also don't want to talk about it in case I'm seen as being a silly little jealous man who can't allow his lady to have a bit of fun. So I decide to do nothing. That's what us guys do. Okay? The trouble is, if you don't communicate fully, genuinely drop it or leave, what happens is you take a turn where there is no path and you find yourself going down disengagement alley. What happens is all those wonderful feelings start to disappear. At first, it's so subtle, you hardly even notice it. But as more events hit and you don't communicate, drop it or leave, you eventually work your way down to the numb point. All those wonderful feelings have completely worn off. I don't really feel much of anything. Then the boss turns up all excited with his new project or plan. So are we up for it, guys? Yeah, is about all I can muster up. Go beyond the numb point and the opposite start to turn up. I used to feel great energy. Now I just feel tired. I was thankful for what I had. Now I'm more focused on what I don't have. Where's my bonus? Where's my raise? Where's my promotion? I used to be excited about what I'm doing. Now I'm quite often bored and I've started moaning and complaining. With Sylvie, I was generous with my tea making. Now I'm counting and comparing how many teas I've made, how many teas she's made, how many times I've emptied the dishwasher. 1/5 of people scored themselves as actively disengaged, and they're on a recruitment drive, trying to convince everyone else just how bad everything really is. This large group of people have a significant impact on performance. You will never achieve the uplifts that we saw earlier once you've got that going on. Now, because you weren't put on the planet to feel all this negative stuff, you're actually meant to be enjoying it, you may find yourself being delivered a drama. In personal relationships, because you've been so negative for so long, you might get dumped. At work, you may get invited to leave. Now, no one is 100% positive all the time. That would require madness or chemicals. It's okay to take a brief trip down disengagement alley. The trick is just don't stay there too long. catch yourself out and choose to re-engage. It's also not inevitable that things start positive and end negative. Some people stay positive 95% of the time, like my mum. But a lot of people make a beeline for the alley. It's all a question of how you manage it. Now, in this room, we have the leaders of the future. Let's use this understanding to take a path to greater engagement. Leadership is a bit like an iceberg. On the surface, you see someone with vision and energy, creating direction and strategy, making decisions and leading the way. But underneath the surface, there is a lot more going on. And a lot of that is to do with how you manage your own level of engagement. So let's have a look at a couple of things you can do that will help with that. One, ask yourself, where am I on that curve? Where do I want to be, and how do I stay there? So we've all heard of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. One of the key characters is Merlin the Wizard. At a key moment when the land has become barren and the king is sad, he whispers in Arthur's ear, "The king and the land are one." He is reminding Arthur, and indeed the Arthur in all of us, of one of the great universal truths. Your world is a reflection of you. How you are changes how things are. Everything is connected. You cannot lead people to greater engagement and enjoy the uplifts we saw earlier unless you are already there yourself. You cannot order people to be engaged. You can only inspire them to be so. And what's inspiring? Someone who is already inspired. And that's you. Merlin is talking about the law of choice. Choose to embody what you want. If you want more engagement, be more engaging. Do you think great leaders wake up every morning feeling inspired? No, I don't think so at all. But they don't wait to feel inspired. They choose to be inspired. Now, let's go back to the tennis club situation. Sylvie's dancing very enthusiastically. She's now walking back to the table. How I choose to be over the next 5 seconds will determine the outcome of the rest of the evening. Quite probably the rest of the week. I could either choose to moan or sulk, or I could choose to embody what I want. How come you dance with him like that and not with me? That's probably not going to work. Wow, it's great to see you dancing like that. Next time we have a dance, I want some of that, please. It's probably more likely to get a better result. What's the alternative? Take dancing off the menu? Headbutt the coach? You always have a choice of how to be. Good leaders choose to be inspiring. And above all, choose to be engaged. Second thing, no midwife has ever delivered a baby and said, "I'm terribly sorry, madam, this is a disengaged baby. But don't worry, it'll have a good management job later on." That just doesn't happen. The vast majority of people are born fully engaged and ready to go. Great leaders remember, people are fundamentally wired up for engagement. We are deeply social creatures. As humans, we chose cooperation and engagement as our strategy for survival, as opposed to growing huge talons, long teeth, and brute strength. As Professor Brian Cox said, it's what evolved us from ape men to spacemen. Rapport, cooperation, and engagement is deeply embedded in our DNA, literally. In everyday life, though, it's a little bit tricky. There's a part of our brain I like to call the label production department. It automatically produces labels for people all the time. We give them to colleagues, bosses, tutors, customers. Some are good, some not so. As soon as I got on this stage, I could feel a few being placed on me. I wouldn't have worn that. I bet he's like this. I bet he's like that. Maybe the person that sat next to you has given a label to you. Maybe you had one for them. Perhaps you could talk about it afterwards. At work, if you have someone that's disengaged, well, we have a label for that. The lazy one, the problem, the difficult one. The trap we fall into is we start to believe that's who they are. They are not. The other trouble with labels is that they are creative. We become the labels we think we are being given. I am more intelligent around the people that think I'm intelligent. I'm less substantial around the people that think I'm insubstantial. I'm funnier around the people that think I'm funny. I once had a boss called Bert. He had a fantastic skill at overriding his automatic production of labels and replacing them with better ones. He chose to see the best in me, and he drew my best out and changed the course of my life. As a leader, the labels you give people can either keep them stuck in their lives or fundamentally affect their future for the positive. Are you willing to upgrade the labels you give people, irrespective of what they look like? It's one of the greatest gifts you can give anyone. Now, I wasn't destined to be a TED Talk speaker. I was a deeply shy, introverted person with a terrible, terrible stutter. Could barely talk. I am only here today in front of all of you because some people on my journey decided to see the highest in me and help me bring it to the surface. The art of leadership is to recognize people's true nature and to draw it out. Don't try and buy engagement with a nicer office, better car parking, a cheaper canteen and some fancy speeches, but secretly only wanting higher performance. People will see through it and it won't work. Don't buy it, create it. Genuinely engage. Be interested. Stretch out your hand to those that have fallen from their path. Have those difficult conversations. Spend time just being with people and not just for the 2 weeks before the annual staff survey. The door to your home opens inwards. Let people in to where you live. Let them in. Then after you've done that, improve the office, the parking, and your flower bringing. And your gifts will be repaid many, many times over. My idea is very simple. There are no disengaged people. That is just an illusion. There are just people like you and me wanting to find out just how much difference we can really make. Thank you.